services. There we go, sharing the correct screen now. I'm teleworking, so I'm not working with 3 screens. So at any rate, our data for this week, as you'll see, year to date, total number of people who've been diagnosed with coronavirus is at 409, which is the same number we were at last week. We have had 11 cases in the month of February. Infection by placement type obviously has not changed since last week. Sorry, but I'll go ahead and review. In host homes, there have been 6 people. Intermediate care facilities, 114 people. In mental health facilities, there was 1 person. In natural homes, 49 people. Nursing homes, 2 people. In out-of-state placements, 4 people. Residential habilitation, 37 people. And in supported living, 196. And as you can see, although the number in supported living is high, the percentage of people supported who are in supported living is also high in the agency. And so by percentage of infection rate and the death rate by placement type, in intermediate care facilities, it's about 38% of people in ICFs have contracted COVID. And of those, 10.5% we have had confirmed COVID deaths. There have been 18% of the people who have had COVID who have died, but a number of those have not been confirmed as COVID related. In natural homes, it's 5.2% of the people in natural homes have contracted COVID. It's out of about 930 people. And of those, about 10% of the people in natural homes who've contracted COVID have died, and all of those have been confirmed as COVID related. In residential habilitation, we've seen an infection rate of 33.6%. And of those, 5.4% have died from COVID. Of those who've been diagnosed, 8% have died, but there are a few of them where the cause of death is not yet confirmed. In supported living, we've had an infection rate of about 21%, and of those, 7% have died from what's been confirmed as COVID, and 9.7% have died, with about 2% where the cause of death is still not confirmed. Overall, with people supported by DDA, 17% have contracted COVID. 8.55% of those have died from COVID confirmed, and 12.7% of people who have had COVID have died. So looking at diagnosis by month and placement type, so far in March, we have had none. So in ICFs, there were 3, in ResHab 3, in supported living 4, and in natural homes 1 person in the month of February. People who required inpatient treatment, there was 1 person that required inpatient treatment in February. And in fact, there is only 1 person who is in the hospital at this time. People who were diagnosed with COVID who have died, to date, there have been 52, including 1 person who died this week and 5 who died in February. Of those, there are a number that 7 who have been confirmed as not COVID related, and another 10 where we're waiting on the final determination. And so in February, we did have 2 people who died where it was either confirmed or presumed COVID. They went to the hospital, were getting treatment for COVID, and died during that inpatient admission. And thus far in March, of the deaths we've had, none have yet been confirmed as COVID related. For provider staff, there are 157 provider staff who have tested positive for COVID. 48 of this staff work for more than one provider, and sadly, 10 provider staff have died from COVID. So I do see a question about whether I'm letting you know about the number of deaths. I do the percentage at the beginning and the absolute number at the end, so I think I got to that. Just a few announcements. First of all, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and we will have our big annual event on March the 31st. In addition, a number of different organizations are having events throughout the month, and all of those should be. All of those are posted on our website, which is why I was sharing the wrong screen when I first pulled up my screen today. And if you go to dds.dc.gov, upcoming events is there. You can scroll down and you can see the first event is tonight, when they will be having a showing of Crip Camp, the movie, which I highly recommend. It's a movie really about the history of disability rights and the passage of the ADA. Prominently featured is DDS's prior director, Judy Heumann, who is a renowned disability advocate in the country. But it's a great movie. I really encourage people, if you're able, to log in and watch that this evening. I know that Quality Trust has their event next week, next Thursday. It's Pain and Sip. And as I said, we have ours, the interagency large event that we have every year is March the 31st. And every week we will be having these different kinds of events. So please look at our webpage and you can see the different events that you can participate in. There's a link here for people to watch the Crip Camp screening. The other thing that we have upcoming is that we have the regular rights and COVID discussions, and the notices of those and the links on our website. There is also an upcoming discussion in Spanish with the Latinx community talking about supports for families, and that is also on our website. I do see the link is here for the Quality Trust event, which is on March the 11th. There's a question about the living arrangement for the 2 people that died since last week. Oh, so it was ICF and supported living. So one was in an ICF and one was in supported living. Oh, I'm sorry. So I should read the whole question rather than assume that everyone that's participating can see the notes. Last week, 50 deaths were reported. Unfortunately, 52 were reported this week. What was the living arrangement of the 2 people whose deaths were reported since last week? One was in supported living, one was in an ICF. And both of those were people who had COVID some time ago. So neither of those are listed on the last slide that indicates the confirmed COVID deaths. So before we move on, okay, so one more thing that's been shared is Health and Joy Services monthly virtual party for the people they support, the last Friday of every month. Contact Haj for a Zoom link at hajs@healthandjoyservices.com. Thanks for sharing that. That is a really great opportunity. As a reminder to people, if you're going to type in a question, make sure you scroll down and type the question to everyone. When you open this, I think it defaults to attendees. And so then all the other folks listening will hear it, but the people who are unmuted and can answer will not. Before we move on to questions, if Donald is now has ability to share his screen, Donald Clark is going to talk about where things are in terms of our technology first efforts.
All righty, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Director Reese. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, awesome. I'm excited to notify everyone that Tech First Initiative will be rolling out a web series March through August. This is the opportunity for our stakeholders to learn about some of the emerging technology solutions that are making a huge impact to promoting the independence for people with disabilities. We are going to roll this out, kicking off starting on March the 19th. Really showing how to create assistive technology goals and how to go about creatively thinking about people we support and how we can implement technology to serve as a natural support for a person to achieve goals and outcomes. In addition to that, we do have each webinar within the web series will focus on another life domain in a person's life, and really focus on showcasing 2 to 3 tech solutions, again, proven tech solutions to promote independence for people with disabilities. Another opportunity I wanted to highlight, which I think really speaks to the current state, is remote supports. We do have one 2-part web series within that to really focus on remote supports, teach people about common use cases, the benefits, the risks, as well as how to effectively plan and implement remote supports. Really, want to provide our stakeholders with best practices around remote supports. We are anticipating getting registration links out to stakeholders by Monday. I'm really excited about this, as I think it really will open our minds on the possibilities that are out there to really support someone and promote independence. So keep a lookout in your inboxes. There is more to come. This is actually something we strategically thought of doing to switch from initially, which was the goal to create a in-person tech festival, but of course, obviously that could not be done. So we wanted to, stand up an opportunity for people to virtually, if possible, touch, feel, and play with tech solutions, and really see how we can shift ourselves into the future of using technology as a natural support. Yes, Ms. Grisby. The question was about the link of the events. This will go out throughout our distribution list, as well as I will put a link to the flyer at this time. As I stated, registration doesn't open up until Monday, but also feel free to reach me if you are not reached through our various distribution lists so I can get the link to you as well. No, really not a main intent. The question was, is these opportunities directed towards our providers? No, we see this as needing to get information out to all our stakeholders, district partners, people supported, providers, service coordinators, VR counselors, to really get minds open to tech solutions and awareness about them. And most importantly, provide best practice skills.
I hope I'm back now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And what it means, by the way, is I have lost any questions that were entered prior to 12:23. So there was a question just as I was being logged off regarding reporting of vaccine for staff and people supported. So a few things. First of all, as people may have noticed, the district starting on Monday has a new mechanism for people registering to get the vaccine rather than opening up registration on particular days. Everyone can go in and register starting on Monday. People can go in and register, and you provide information when you register that will give them enough information to identify when you would be eligible to get the vaccine. And when you are eligible and adequate vaccine is available, you are notified of the ability to schedule a vaccination. As people are aware, I believe, next week on March 9th and 10th, we will be having a vaccination clinic that's been coordinated by DC Health with Giant as well as DDA. And so the DDA Health and Wellness nurse consultants have been working with our provider nurses to identify the people who are at highest risk to schedule times for them to get the vaccine. At this time, we have the 9th and 10th scheduled, and the 16th and 17th, they are working on scheduling as well. And they are hoping for the 23rd and 24th as well. They can only schedule so far in advance because the amount of vaccine that comes in depends on the amount that's available from the federal government. And so we expect there will also be clinics on the 23rd and 24th. With that said, I would like to remind people that on Monday, you can go in and register in the DC portal. There are also other ways that people can have access to the vaccine. For folks who live in Maryland or Virginia, you should check your local jurisdiction for where they are in terms of availability of vaccine. For people who live in DC, not only can you log in through the district's portal, but if you've received health services through any of the hospital systems, there's a link there for you to register, and you can get your vaccine from one of those. For people who receive care through the federally qualified health centers in the district, there are a number of those listed, and you can also sign up through them. What I would recommend is that you log in, and every place you are eligible to register, that you register. For example, even before the coronavirus.dc.gov portal had registration becoming available next week, even before that, you could log in and get texts or emails from the district advising you of updates on the vaccine. And I can tell you from being logged in there that those updates come very regularly. I can also tell you that they're, including the hospital systems as well as Kaiser, those have vaccines available that you can log directly into their sites and get availability for that. I'll let people know I've scheduled my vaccine for Monday. We strongly encourage people, while we are trying to make this separate clinic available, in part, we have some people who, because they're not able to independently remove a mask, they shouldn't have a mask on. It would be more difficult for them to go to a public site to get a vaccine. The clinic that's available really does a good job. It's a separate space. It spaces the people coming in. And so people can get the vaccine there. It is helpful to have that extra resource, but I will say there are resources and people should be accessing every avenue possible. Our goal is for all of us to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Now, in terms of tracking of this, so for staff, our quality resource folks are working with the provider agencies, which includes our day service providers, to gather the data about the aggregate numbers of staff by setting who have been vaccinated. For the people that we support, we are adding a tab to MCIS, and we will be sending out instructions within the next couple days for providers so that they can upload the data, upload the documentation when a person has been vaccinated. And this way we will have good data on everyone. And that will be our in-home support and residential providers. It wouldn't be, so it'll be the people primarily responsible for the wraparound care for a person. And that should be coming out, as I said, that transmittal should be coming out in the next couple days, and then we'll be able to report all of that more certainty. So there's someone saying that their QSR told them to ignore the vaccine reporting survey for now when I told her I wasn't sure if I had the right link. So what I will say is that the reporting providers initially were completing a an Excel spreadsheet, and that is being updated now through contact with their quality resource specialist. And so your communication about how to update your data would come through your quality resource specialist. So please rely on what they are telling you about how to update that information. I see a part of a question here, and it's coming from Charlisa. So maybe you could tell me. It says, last one is for those an appointment. I don't know what the one vaccine shot is. I do know that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is one shot, will be available in DC. What I understand from a meeting this morning where Dr. Shah spoke is when you schedule your appointment, you do learn which vaccine they're using. Everyone is encouraged. If you have questions about whether you should get a vaccine, you should talk to your healthcare provider. Generally speaking, everyone is encouraged to get a vaccine. All vaccines are considered safe and effective. And so I would go with the vaccine that you have access to. But when you have questions that are medical questions about the vaccines, please contact your healthcare provider to discuss those. So does anyone know where to find the federally qualified health centers for vaccine? Yes. And this would be if you go to coronavirus.dc.gov/vaccinate-DC. When that comes up, you can scroll down and you will see schedule a health center appointment. And right there is the list of health centers so that if anyone on this call receives their care through Mary Center, Community of Hope, Unity Health at either Upper Cardoza or Brentwood, Bread for the City, Clínica del Pueblo, Elaine Ellis Center of Health, Whitman Walker Health, Family and Medical Counseling Service, or Providence Health System. You can contact that health system to get your vaccine through them when they have it available. You can also, if you get care, if you're connected to any of the hospital systems, including the Kaiser system or United Medical Center, Sibley, GW, MedStar, Georgetown, or Washington Hospital Center, or Howard University Hospital, you can go to, there's a link for each of those and how you register them for vaccine. So for the vaccination clinics that DDA is scheduling with DC Health, I assume that's the question, are they available only to folks getting DDS service, or can anyone who has IDD schedule an appointment? Yes, those are only for people supported by DDA, and the way the determination of who will be scheduled for those is that there's coordination between the DDA health and wellness nurse consultants, and the directors of nursing, as well as our nurse practitioners, because they're also looking at people who are who live at home and do not receive any and aren't connected to a provider agency with a provider nurse. So they're making that medical determination of who should be scheduled there. As I said, there are these other resources, and while what we hear mostly is about the frustration people have with navigating different systems to get the vaccine, be persistent, because it does pay off. And as I said, you can register in all these different systems. You will get texts from them as long as you qualify, like with the hospital systems. If you're listed as a connected to that hospital, which I know where I registered, it was if you'd been there in the last year, or if you receive health care through any of those the health centers that I listed. If you're connected to them, you could get your vaccine there when any of those have it available. Can I go over the surveillance testing guidance or requirements? I guess I'm not clear about that question. If this is a question about the reporting requirements for providers to report to us, or if it's a question about how DC Health does surveillance regarding COVID. So if some more detail could be provided, we have DC Health staff with us. We could respond to that. Has there been any consideration given to arranging for provider staff to obtain the vaccination in a more coordinated way? That is not only via the portal. We have discussed this issue with DC Health, but as I said, there are a variety of different ways that people can get their vaccination scheduled. Whether you live in Maryland, DC, or Virginia, it is the same story all around. There's less vaccine and there is need for vaccine. So, I do appreciate that there is some anxiety and frustration about being able to get an appointment. However, as I said, it is possible. And, for our provider staff who live in another state, they should also be checking their local jurisdiction for what options are available to them there in order to get the vaccine, because they could be eligible either in DC or their own state potentially. So there's a question here. I was told that we are to test our staff every 2 weeks. I am not aware, and I'm going to turn to Daryl Hawkins, I think that's fair, to answer this question about whether there are any testing requirements for staff.
Director Reese, DC Health does not have a mandate or requirement for ICF to do surveillance testing, meaning weekly testing or whatever frequency for staff working in ICFs or CRFs. I will say, as I've said in the past, facilities can choose to do that on their own as part of their own facility policy. So I would refer this question to whatever your facility policy states for required staff testing. But from DC Health, there is no mandate or requirement for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a response, it's just getting staff vaccinated is as super important for people that they support as well. I agree with that. And people may recall staff have actually been eligible for the vaccine, some starting as early as December the 26th. And so all I can say is, as I said, there are a number of different possible avenues, and people really need to kind of make it their business to make a real effort to log into every avenue that's open to them and see which one comes through most quickly. Any updates on the Appendix K? No. DHCF will be submitting the Appendix K to CMS, but I have not seen the final that they are submitting. And as soon as we have that, we will share that with people here. I do think that I already shared the Appendix K has already been extended until September 30th with what is existing in it. We are seeking some additional flexibility, and that's the information that we will share as soon as that's been submitted to CMS for approval. There's a comment, it would be helpful for DDS to push for coordinated get vaccinated, doing what we can to support staff to get vaccinated, as I said, and the district early on made all staff eligible for vaccination in group 1B, actually prior to opening vaccination for people 65 and older. We're tracking this. And one of the things, we have a provider leadership meeting coming up. And one of the things we will do there is that we're going to be asking our providers who have been having success with getting more of their staff vaccinated to share with other provider agencies what strategies they used so that we can see this success throughout the system. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so it's 12:43. How about if we just leave this open until 12:45? And if people have questions, please type them in. And otherwise, everyone, please have a good weekend. Stay safe. And as I said, we really encourage everyone to take all the steps you can. On Monday, when the portal is open for people to register, please register. That's one mechanism. Look at all the different platforms through which you could potentially be eligible to get a vaccine and access as many as possible so that we can see the vaccination as widespread as possible in our community. It's really essential for ourselves, for the people around us, and for the community to see vaccination become widespread. So have a great weekend, folks, and I'll talk to you again next week.